Okay, welcome. This is going to be the first discussion, I'm going to imagine, at least of a few, for the Ultras 2 Reckoning Boogaloo group. We're going to have Kevin on, and we're also going to have Callan on in a minute once he's ready to come back. We're going to be discussing a few things, primarily, I guess, the events that have transpired in the past few days. Hopefully getting some kind of consensus on what happened and what can be done and what we will be doing. So, I guess my first thing to do is introduce Kevin, and then Kevin, what is your kind of take on what's going on at the moment?
Well, I've been really concerned the last few days because I believe it was over the weekend, Ian was making some pretty erratic comments. So I thought I'd take the initiative and create a secondary group just in case because he'd been threatening to just close the whole page altogether.
Right.
So I thought I'd take the initiative and say, okay, fine, we'll make a backup group in case he decides to do that. But and I thought that'd be the end of it. I thought either he would close down the group and that'd be the end of discussion, or he
Right.
would sort of like clean up his act, as it were, and kind of move, and we could move on from it. As it turned out, kind of neither of those things happened, and the sort of erratic behavior continued and kind of intensified. And so at this point now, we are starting to build up Ultras 2, kind of as a reinforcement, hopefully not as a replacement per se, but I mean, if it comes to that, it comes to that. And we're trying to just build the community at this point, I think.
Yeah, I was noticing that at least all the people that came over from the original group seem to be just as enthusiastic or interested in making sure that it's useful, or at least a group that we at least want to be a part of at this point. Because I was around for most of that too, and kind of saw like the conversation devolving, even like with people who I consider how do I want to say it, like a respectful, or I mean respect worthy as far as argument acumen goes. And it just seemed like a lot of things were devolving, which is what it was kind of like before the Ultras group was created, because I was part of the Gamergate 2012 or the 2014 group when things started descending into that as well, and it seems to be kind of the same pattern. But
Yeah, no,
I'm just wondering.
I absolutely agree. I mean, I was there too, and I remember the kind of last few days before Ian created Ultras in the first place, and the court sort of, as you were saying, it was like a division between the two groups.
Yeah.
I mean, there was this very strong SJ cohort that had kind of risen, and it had become a complete mess. And we're seeing the
Yeah.
same thing now, where it's, well, not the same exact conflict, but we're seeing the same divisions, and we're seeing really a divide into two camps. There's the kind of group who wants to keep going, and then there's a group who wants to say, we're done. And I'm personally of the opinion that, I mean, we went into this, I think, as part of a greater conflict, and we can't just say, okay, we've accomplished X, Y, and Z. Now it's time we all go home. And I saw
Yeah,
next. Oh no, go
I
ahead.
don't think there was ever. I don't think there was ever, or at least I never expected a go home condition. Like there's a win condition, but that's when you plant your flag and you stand there. Is sort of the thing, as far as I saw. And I think that the toughest thing. You're right. It's not exactly the same, but what's tough about it is that we all do have the same goal, and it's there really are no insidious or sideways things happening. It's more just like people now disagree on whether or not, I guess it's whether or not we should continue. I know Ian absolutely agrees we should continue, in fact was calling for us to do more, but I guess I'm wondering what that could be at this moment, other than being a watchdog, as well as trying to at least take the fight, well, leave the GG name behind somewhat, to take the fight as this group of people that we are into different sectors, like comic books, movies, TV, anything like that, even politics and philosophy. Just because I mean, all of us have been paying attention and noticed it creeping in from other places like Digra and things like that. So I imagine, I guess I just imagine that this group, or any group that we, the we few who are enthusiastic about this, should at least, as you put it before, on the actual page, should kind of feel out what it should be and figure and act accordingly. Basically, like if we have to be a watchdog, we'll be a watchdog. If we have to be backup, we'll be backup, and if we have to be spec ops, we'll be spec ops. But I think it's just kind of a shame that there is a division, because I'm even seeing people, which I rarely do, in the GG groups now, where I'm like, I flat out disagree with you, and it doesn't seem that in this argument that you're having, you're going to, actually be reasonable with the person that's talking to you. So that's really the only concern that I have. I don't think it'll carry on to Ultras 2, but I am crossing the hell out of my fingers for that.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. And really, I think what we're starting to see now, as any group gets bigger, as any group reaches the size that we have, I mean, we're up to 1,500 members. I mean, any group that size will have its divisions, but at this point, we're also looking at other issues too. And I kind of walked into this already sort of knowing that this was sort of like a mid-step between two conflicts per se, because I mean, like let's be honest with ourselves here. There's much more at work, than some corrupt games journalists. And I think most of us are starting to realize, those who maybe came from a sort of neutral position or sort of a position of ignorance weren't really aware of all that. And by being part of this movement, they've sort of learned those things. But and with Ultras too, I mean, I very intentionally I'm dropping the name. I'm dropping the association, because I mean, no, we are still associated. We are still related to it for the time being. But as it goes on, I think our focus can shift, and we shouldn't limit ourselves to a single issue. And what we're seeing now is we of course we're a lot smaller group now, and I've sort of purposefully brought aboard through my sort of first wave of invites all the people I know. So all the people I kind of not trust per se, but all the people I know are interested, are actually not just because, I mean, I saw this in forums and I've seen this a million times in a million places, that there are, in any sort of substantially sized movement, a lot of people who are just hangers on, a lot of people, and this is why I think Ian was complaining a lot too, because I think, and I can see where he's coming from. This has gone on for a long time, and a lot of people aren't actually moving the movement forward. They're not contributing to the cause in any substantial way. Now, at the same time, there's not a lot for these people to do, because, I mean, there are places where these things are organized, and if they don't know, well, I mean, it's not, we can point them in the right direction, but at the same time, as the old saying goes, you lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So with
that's why we have Twitter.
Yeah, there you go. I was gonna say you also can't make board admins not say get the fuck out normie re. Like it also does happen. Like I've seen it even happen on Gamergate HQ, where someone comes in a little bit late and he gets shit on because he doesn't know how to read what 8chan looks like. Like you have to kind of get used to those certain APIs and stuff. It's very interesting.
Well, all the chan boards are a culture unto themselves, to be fair.
Yeah.
Like you don't blunder onto a chan and just post. You have to lurk
for a while to figure it out.
You can spend years studying this.
I'm sure people have.
You could make a PhD course about chan cultural study.
I wonder if that's something I should actually do for the channel, is to, not do a takedown, because I'm a huge fan of chan culture myself, but I mean, just to at least explain it to the normies so they don't think we're so fucking ridiculous. And like, actually, because I think that's a big thing. That's one reason, what's his name, Hot Wheels is now having issues getting money again. It's just because there are such weird things on their Patreon, just doesn't want to be part of them. So it's kind of crappy.
Well, Patreon took its side pretty early on. A lot of people who we are in opposition against are either personally connected, as in the case of Brianna Wu, or tangentially connected with the controllers of Patreon. So I mean, from a very early start, they basically said, okay, this is who we are, and I mean, a series of organizations and conventions are, by definition, against what we are, because either A, they've listened to, what the media has to tell them and sort of drunk the Kool-Aid, as it were. B, they aren't paying attention, So
Mhm.
they are just going by what their gut feeling is, or by what they're told, or see they're
Yeah.
part of the sort of opposition themselves.
Yeah,
And
you saw that little cunt C418.
Oh yeah, and it always pisses me off because I actually, when it's like I wish I would have known about this a long time ago. 'Cause one, I'm a huge Minecraft fan. It's like built for my autism, and the music in it I really do like, just from going through like musical therapy courses and things like that. He did a really good job on that music, and then seeing how much of a fucktard he is very upsetting, to be honest. It's just like you
Well,
always have to trust the art, not the artist.
well, like, I just looking at him, I just want to fucking whack him in the face. It's just like, one, he looks like Justin Bieber. One, he looks like Justin
A
Bieber,
little
which
bit.
does not help.
He's just another hipster bedroom musician. That's all. Like
Yeah.
there's enough of them, and
He
it
should,
was just upsetting.
he should do what I did. Go start a band with a few friends.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, but then he might actually have to compromise his artistic integrity, right?
Well, no. Well, in fairness, we haven't had to compromise anything. A lot of us are a bunch of metal fans, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's very true. I was gonna say, I mean, I like a lot of music and kind of grew up through classical music and stuff like that, and just noticing that most of us are into metal. It's like that's how I got into metal, was classical music. So it's very interesting that we're all metalheads at the same time for all of GG, or at least most of us. I haven't
Oh,
really
come
run
on.
into too many people that
You
don't
cannot,
appreciate it.
you cannot deny that metal and gaming were made for each other.
Metal, gaming, and industrial music, because I don't think I've ever come across better gaming albums than Mindless Self-Indulgence. So that's truly
Yeah.
where my gaming music resides. But
And Need for Speed usually have some pretty good soundtracks as well.
absolutely, absolutely. I was going to say that any of the racing games so far, I usually like rock that ends up coming from actual classic rock
Yeah.
stylings like Wolf Mother and stuff like that, and that usually ends up on racing games. But I was going to ask, so before we tangent off into just video game soundtracks and metal, I wanted to ask you, Callan, what's your kind of take on what was going on? We just asked Kevin about it, but I wanted to hear your
Just
side of it as well.
just with sort of the event and the founding of Ultras 2.
Yeah, basically.
It's very much. I do think it's a good thing that we founded Ultras 2. I can't remember if it's the Reckoning at this stage, or I think we've changed it.
Ultras 2 Reckoning Boogaloo. But yeah,
we,
that's the
we,
one.
we need to change our cover image to one of Bane.
Yeah, there you
saying
go.
like,
The
saying
hills-
like
hills-
saying that was good, yeah. No, ours needs to say like him looking directly at you, just saying like "Welcome to Gamergate Ultras 2, Reckoning Boogaloo."
there you go.
Yeah. Well, I do think yeah, we kind of do need sort of an auxiliary sort of group to Ultras because, well, personal dramatics and all that shit happens. It's also
Yeah.
kind of nice. It's also kind of just nice to have sort of a smaller group because Ultras has gotten huge.
Yes, 1,500. I mean, but as Kevin was saying, there's a lot of them that are just not. They're
Yeah.
lurkers and hangers on, so that you're not going to get too much out of them, like muddying up the actual conversation. It'll be more like you're going to be dealing with.
Like Ultras is pretty much Ultras and Reckoning Boogaloo are like the two groups I actively comment and post
Yeah,
on.
I was going to say, because I mean, when Ultras was created, I mean, I was trying to have a foot in both camps. This is kind of the same thing. Kevin and I were just kind of talking about that there's a very huge or vast congruency with how the other Gamergate 2014 group destabilized and then sected out, and this one, because there's just seemed to be a lot of infighting, and it didn't seem to be productive. It didn't seem to actually have anything to do with the issues at hand. It seemed way more
Well, that's,
about a personal grudge, basically. So that's why I'm noticing a difference here. But and I agree
Yeah.
wholeheartedly that we need a sect off of that group, like some kind
Yeah.
of Protestant.
Well,
to the problems.
You're triggering me. I'm an atheist. How dare you?
That's right.
And not only that, he's Irish. I mean, Protestant. That's just a trigger word in itself.
Oh,
That's exactly right.
To me, my trigger is stupidity. And
Yeah,
guess what?
okay.
Most Irish nationalists and unionists are.
Catholic?
Well, no, it's Catholic
Well,
versus Protestant. Unionists are
oh, that's true.
mostly Catholic, and nationalists are no. Unionists are mostly Protestant, and
Yeah.
nationalists are mostly Catholic. But I swear to
Yes.
God, the jackassery we get sometimes,
Yeah.
especially because in the north, in Northern Ireland, we have parade season.
Oh, that's always fun.
I'm not kidding, mate. I'm not kidding.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look it up because it sounds eerily similar to what happens in the Central Valley when summer comes around. Because there's a lot of there's just a huge, vast amount of like I want to say, yeah, it's Catholicism, but it's mainly like Hmong Catholicism and Portuguese Catholicism. So we have
Okay.
like festas all the time, like
No, but
basically.
So these festivals in Ireland, I recall the last one, I think. This unionist group basically marched through this Catholic sector of Belfast and like past these Catholic churches and like in this like overly attempted intimidation, but really more like this provocative sort of way. Just marched right through this Catholic neighborhood. It's sort of like a show of power.
Middle finger in the air. Yeah, that went on for fucking years. I mean, in Northern Ireland.
These are actually like diametrically opposed like political parades. I'm seeing like there's unionist parades and nationalist parades.
Well, the unionists try to stop the nationalists from parading so they can shit on the nationalists, and the nationalists try to do vice versa.
Well, why not? It's a war.
Yeah. Fuck you, Dev. Thanks a lot, Dev. You know who Eamon De Valera is, right?
I have heard the name enough times, and I was going to say I have.
I'm kind of unfairly blaming him here. Really, if we're going to take it back further, it was a guy called Padraig Pearse who actually started the 1916 Rising that snowballed the latest set of tensions. But we can go back even further than that. Yeah, literally, this goes back to the 1600s during the Ulster Plantation, which is when all the fucking produce came over.
Yeah, I'm noticing. I'm just kind of like bringing up these. You're talking about the Easter Rising, and that would make sense. Like, there's it all seems to be around the Protestant versus Catholic.
Yeah, it's just like it infuriates me because it's effectively at this stage. Before that, it was a terrorist campaign, and now it's basically a pissing match. It's like it's like if the social justice warriors suddenly split down the middle and turned on each other. Like, not just like the occasional
like now.
No, not like the occasional petty infights we see. I mean, literally, social justice warriors suddenly organize themselves into two camps and then just descended on each other.
See, this is well, I mean, that's kind of what I thought of just when people like Karen Strawn and I guess you could say Lizzie and
Karen.
And I was going to say when they came out, because they were, I guess, because Karen's not necessarily like right wing or anything. I'm sure that's what the social justice warriors and feminists would call her. But I did see like her and Christina Hoff Sommers, because I actually read The War Against Boys when I was in high school, and I saw that there was a split. Like, I mean, there always kind of has been, but it seems like it's only like lone wolves coming out of the feminist ideology that seem to combat it. It's never like a group of people that does it. It's always like Christina Hoff Sommers as herself kind of walks out and says something about it. In fairness,
Germaine Greer actually has done it to a certain degree. She doesn't completely subscribe to the bullshit. I mean, like, if you remember how to Anita Sarkeesian's How to Be a Feminist talk, I just remember you could make an entire video just on examining what Germaine Greer does during that, and she's just there like looking at her, kind of hand over your mouth. I'm not sure if I should take this wagon seriously or not.
Yeah. To be honest, I think it's just that she's just not as strident as most of the other feminists. And
no, she's a fucking diva.
Well, I mean, but still not as strident as someone like Andrea Dworkin or
she's
what's her name, Gloria Steinem. She's not as strident as those two, and doesn't seem as zealous about jumping on a new issue and turning it into a feminist issue, if that makes sense, because that seems to be the purview of most of them at this point. So it's that's why
intersectional feminism is, I like to call it egalitarian's annoying Tumblrite younger sibling.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
I'm sure we can agree on that.
The richier, bitchier sister to egalitarianism. And, I'm going through I was going through just a couple of things explaining kyriarchy or kyriarchy, however you want to pronounce it.
Kyriarchy. It's like the most kyriarchy annoys me because it's just like no matter what I suppose I'm diabetic and I'm dyspraxic, so I can claim ableism technically.
Right.
But the problem is that I've received help from like the Department of Education, and I've also got an insulin pump, which is really the best form of treatment we have at the moment. So I can't really claim ableism either, which is the fucking problem with kyriarchy, because once you take away once you take away the lens, it just crumbles.
What I didn't like about it when I read it, it was just like, okay, so they have made it so that no matter who or where you are in life, that you can assume that you will be diametrically opposed to another type of person. I'm like, that is not how fucking life is. Sorry. And even if it is like, if you want to say ableism, like handicap wheelchairs versus just walking up steps, it is not. Like, really, those two things are not diametrically opposed, and people who walk do not oppress people who don't.
Well, it's essentially just a way for them to continue their sort of crusade indefinitely. I mean, you can only hold on the old sort of maxims of quote-unquote oppression without having to invent new ones. And we saw this, a year or two back with all this, like, otherkin nonsense. And now this invention of, kyriarchy basically makes it so that anyone,
Actually, kyriarchy dates back to 1989. It's an oldish concept as feminism goes.
It's just intersectional feminism hasn't really gained ground until more recently.
Yes, exactly.
So I was more, and I know I'm gonna be. I always am worried to mention this name whenever I come up with, whenever I hear stuff like this, but. Ayn Rand used to write and actually do a lot of talks where she talked about value inversions, where basically she was predicting that if things kind of went the way they were, we would see value inversions like censorship is now the ideal for freedom of speech and things like that, and everything is rated.
The mad bitch was right.
Right, and it kind of scares me, and I honestly, I don't totally disagree with her all the time. I fucking love her books because they're actually really well-written stories, but it's just like, how the fuck, like, really, people shit on her all the time, and I'm like, if you've read We the Living, too, feminists should be looking at that as a damn, like, Bible for feminism, to be honest.
Yeah,
but
to be fair, it's kind of, people kind of tend to shit on her because her objectivist philosophy, which she kind of constructed, and it is, as Bioshock, so brutally yet elegantly just displayed as a sack of horse shit.
I don't like the way they displayed it either. But I love the game. I just didn't think that it was actually a fair shake on it, only because they probably haven't read any of her nonfiction. But in any case, I still like the games, and I don't really care if anyone like craps on her because there have been better economic philosophers that have come out since her. So she's not Jesus, and it's not the end all.
Have you guys ever heard of a young wagon named Claudia Boleyn?
How do you spell the last name?
Boelin, like as in Anne Boleyn.
Claudia Boleyn. I see her now.
Do you want? Should we do a little screen share reacting with her?
Yeah, sure. We're talking about. She's on Twitter now. Like, so here, let me. What should I bring up, or did you want to bring something up?
I'll look up something on her YouTube channel now. She's actually a pretty good musician.
Okay. So I just want to when I search it, I'm getting just searches that say, like when I type in Claudia Boleyn, I'm getting feminist Claudia Boleyn is a mentally ill chronic liar.
Yeah. Do you want? I don't know. I've got her.
YouTube. Is there I see her YouTube channel here, or at least I'm on it now.
How about this? Feminist Thought of the Week: Women aren't funny. We do that.
Feminist Thought of the Week. It's okay. Yeah, let me do that really quick here. I believe I can share this on. So
we basically just do what the drunken peasants do.
Oh, nice. Okay, opening YouTube. Let me put this in. What the hell, YouTube? Fun. Oh, there we go. And add videos to playlist. What the hell does that say? There we are. And copy and paste. Oh, sorry, it's the first time I'm doing any of this crap with
Screen share,
YouTube involved.
Oh, still, it's a bit of fun.
But kind of going back to what we were talking about before with our own divisions, I want people to kind of understand that this is not going to be like how GG 2014 and Ultras originally split. I want this to be a lot more amicable than how things were last time.
Yeah.
For instance, I mean, we're keeping on all the same admins. We're keeping on a lot of the same members. I mean, I don't want this to be, sort of like my first priority is making sure that this isn't a competition. This isn't going to be, Group 1 versus Group 2 or anything. It's going to be Group 1 plus Group 2, and if Group 1 goes, Group 2 will still be there.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Just go ahead.
In fairness, like Ian's been in this for a year. He's basically been in this since the beginning. In fairness to him, he's been going for ages.
I usually try to take like a moment out of once a week to just mention that Ian is constantly posting, and like I honestly can't keep up with him sometimes, and mostly it's a compliment. It's a compliment because I honestly I don't have the nerve, and he's a grown man and he has a kid from what I understand. Like it's kind of crazy to me that he should have to try to put this on himself.
He's quite the dedicated fellow.
Yeah,
and it's great we have him. Like, it's great to have such an amazing admin. But I gotta admit, like, he said he's a painter, which, okay, while it might not be the most physically testing job, it's still long hours.
Yeah, I've done that, and it's good money when you have the work, but it's also one of those things where you can't guarantee work all the time, and especially in a place like Britain where it rains a lot, so it's tough.
Yeah.
But
I worked on a construction site for a summer and I loved it.
But yeah, Ian's one of these. He's an unsung hero, really. I mean, he's been doing essentially the drudge work. Well, people rightfully so. People like Sargon, like Goodfella, like even Mundane Matt, people like that. Rightfully so, they get they rightfully so they get a lot of credit. But I mean, people like Ian, they don't get the credit that I think personally that they deserve. I mean, he's been doing this for months on end, and for the first before the group essentially got too big, that he couldn't manage it by himself. He was running the whole show by himself, and he was doing a majority of the posts himself, and a lot of people were just there to kind of comment them and kind of discuss it. So. This guy has worked tirelessly for months on it, and anybody, I defy the best of people not to feel the pressure of that eventually, especially with recent events going on, and the pressure that he's been under for just months on end with Ultras alone, let alone his own life. I defy anybody to come out in a better position than Ian is right now. I mean, we have to. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I was just going to say, as long as he has kept his nose to the grindstone is really what impresses me, because, I mean, I try to yeah, I was going to say, I basically try to dunk my head under the GG waters, I guess you could say, as long as I can, but, I mean, I'm a pretty high-stress individual. Like, I grind my teeth in my sleep, so I have to take breaks away, so I think about it as someone even has more to deal with than I do, and like I give him a lot of props just for that, just because he has been working harder than. If he really wants to have that gripe, he has been working harder than all of us. But I don't think any of us really wanted to force him into that position.
Yeah,
No, exactly.
I remember he kind of whined about having to just share everything he saw, and I was like, you don't have to share everything. You're doing it of your own volition.
Yes, and I think he like most people, or a lot of people, believe that if he doesn't do something about it now, or if he doesn't keep the activity going, like keeping the post numbers up, keeping the op numbers up, and he also it sounded like he wanted someone to at least recognize that Ultras is doing something. Like
Ultras,
I don't know how to put that.
Ultras is is a great group. I think Ian should step down as admin for a while if he's getting this stressed out, and just sort of pass the torch to John or Lee or Manny or any of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's the sort of like council of admins now, I think, should definitely be taking the forefront of leadership and moving the group forward as it stands. Because you're right. I mean, it with that amount of stress that I was discussing before, and with the recent erratic behavior, it's probably time that he. I remember a month ago, sort of like a side tangent. He was taught, he removed all mention of being, and he openly declared that he wasn't part of the movement anymore. And this is when it really all started. And the fact that it's continued into today is just signs that despite all the great work that he's done, his time has come to an end. And it doesn't help that he hasn't gotten any real recognition for that. He never asked for any, but I mean.
Yeah.
Someone deserves mention for it. And I was talking to a lot of people a while ago, and some were, like, personally, I don't care, but some were upset about the recent Sargon video where he kind of mentions, and I'll get to what I think in a second, but they were talking about how Sargon mentioned all these great, GG resources, but completely left out Ian, completely left out, and I mean,
he's a member of our group as well.
Yeah, no, and that's why they were so upset. A lot of people know that Sargon, his actual identity is in the group. He monitors things. He's commented a couple times as his actual alias, and he's been not active, but he's been fairly active. I mean, he's aware of us, and he's aware of the work that we're doing. And a lot of people were upset that recognition for that. And personally, like,
the Justicar is part of our group.
Yeah, exactly. We have Thunderfoot here. We have.
Seriously?
Yeah, no,
That's.
Yeah, so
that's
I mean,
what see, that was my issue with it though too, is that we obviously do have it there, but I also think it being an open group isn't a good idea to just blast that. If Sargon was really on Pac-Man and just said, also look up Gamergate Ultras, it would have been a nightmare, like truly a nightmare for the admins.
And I mean, from my personal perspective, it's like this isn't one of Sargon's direct projects. I mean, he has his own full plate of things to do. I mean, he's basically had to delay his game specifically because of events that have been going on, and so he has his own full plate. Plus, he has a kid now. And I don't know, yeah, exactly. And I don't know if his fiance and him have married. So, I mean, this guy's got a family, he's got a career, and he's got this. So, I mean, he's got a lot on his plate. So, adding this into it too, I mean, maybe it's an oversight, or maybe it's just not that important to him personally, and as a result, it's not something he's going to mention. And no one should fault him for that. I mean, like, we can't be all upset because one person doesn't view us as terribly important. I mean, that's like, we shouldn't judge for that. And you were right before, William. It's like, I think that's sort of the germ of my argument when it comes to that. But I mean, the lack of recognition overall. I mean, we also have to keep in mind that we're just we're just a Facebook group, and a majority of the operations are going on in 8chan. Or are going on in private rooms, or going on
Kotaku in Action.
Kotaku in Action, or going on outside of this. I mean, at the end of the day, what we have here is a more social environment. Is more of like a meeting place. You know, in the greater atmosphere, we're more like a marketplace where all this is being transacted, and so we can't fool ourselves into thinking that this is the center of the universe, because quite simply it isn't. You know, so I mean, the things we do outside of this are more important than we do inside of it. And it's important to keep that in mind, I think.
I suppose that's one of the beauties of Gamergate is that it's so uncentralized. Like, one thing, I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with the concept of a non-Newtonian fluid.
Yes, I am. That's, I mean, just from watching enough
Big Bang?
sci-fi films getting... no, not Big Bang. Not at all. I'm trying to remember what movie it was actually part of. Crap. Non-Newtonian. It's non-Newtonian. Okay, go ahead. I'm looking it up.
Well, basically, it's a fluid that doesn't behave like a normal fluid does. It doesn't behave like water.
Right.
Big Bang Theory had one example of one that was a mixture of cornstarch and water that sort of solidified with percussive sound. But ours is more like, on the defensive, ours is more like a substance called dilatant, which basically hardens when it's stabbed. So basically, I saw it on a documentary on YouTube that basically if you treat Kevlar with this stuff, it renders the Kevlar stab-proof.
Right.
And that's also on the defensive. We form this impenetrable block that will not let up until the opposing force has expended itself or been gone elsewhere. And then on the attack, we suddenly just explode like an electric current pass through us.
Right. It's kind of this is weird, but just the visual, I guess the visual art style that they used. Either of you guys have you read or seen John Dies at the End? The movie John. Yeah, it's just called. There's a book and a movie. It's a very, very good in my opinion. It's kind of like a non-serious, like a campy look at time travel and interdimensional travel and stuff like that. But this stuff, basically, there's a drug that's going around that they call the soy sauce, and it's basically the thing that's allowing. Yeah, this is what I mean. It's super campy. They call it the soy sauce, and it's like this black substance that kind of like it is very non-Newtonian, and it seems to jump out at people. That's how weird it is. Like it jumps out of the needle into people's arms, and that's kind of what I'm picturing. Because it's basically we see things that as a group, or I guess as GG, because I think most of us have kind of comfortably settled into the watchdog mentality. Like I don't think many of us have the energy to actually go out and be like, I'm gonna find an SJW who's spouting crap. It's like, every now and then I try to. It's just too damn much like energy to like get into. The last one I did, I actually posted the whole damn argument on the Ultras group, and it was really just a dumb argument. I kept it was one of my friends who had me go and like, can you just BTFO this person? And they were just parroting everything, and that's really what made it so exhausting. Is because it wasn't like I was going to win an argument. I was going to shut this person up. Is really what it felt like. So I've
literally settled into this thing where I want to lose an argument. I am so sick and tired of winning.
Yes. Yeah.
I want to have a clear-cut defeat. I know that sounds really weird, but it's so true. I'm just sitting here just like, okay, I'm hearing the same shit over and over again. Just type in prove it and rinse and repeat.
Yeah, and well, that was the thing that kind of came out in one of the last Sargon videos where I think it was just him like bringing up all the weird SJW nonsense, where he basically says, you'd think if you had all this evidence, you could have just won the argument, but you're going to back off, and it's like if they have all this evidence, they would have won the argument. Comment 3, like that, and that's why it's so exhausting for me. Is because they're going into it knowing that they're just going to primarily use sophistry and things like that. So it's. Yeah.
What I find the most irritating, I mean, because here's the thing, we know we're right. We can argue the objective form knows we're right, but the fact of the matter is that so many people have subscribed to the lies that have been put forward so far that it doesn't matter how many arguments we win. It doesn't matter how many arguments that not only will there always be more. We will to the so-called quote-unquote court of public opinion will still lose in the end. So it doesn't matter how right we are. we're literally in a position where we have these arguments, but we just come out looking worse each and each time. You know, because people aren't willing to be informed, aren't willing to look at the things. I mean, for Christ's sake, you know, you still have things like the wage gap myth that are being spouted by the President of the United States and the bloody Pope. You know, like these people won't even take the most basic part of research and will just puppet these things over and over again because, I mean, it's human nature. Laziness is human nature, and a lot of people would rather. Well, sorry, go ahead.
I've actually come up with a term for that. I call it corporate feminism.
Yeah.
In what way would it be corporatized? Just out of curiosity.
Well, it's just these myths and like these pseudo empowering campaigns like ban bossy, he for she, all these things are all sort of pseudo empowering and feel more like PR campaigns on the part of the individual.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
yeah, it all seems like, but yeah, schlock from like this, you know, those self-help books like The Secret and stuff. It's just basically telling you you're worth something without the knowledge if you are or not.
Yeah, exactly. And it's these things that are just because people would rather listen to an argument from popularity. It's a sort of, you know, self-replicating virus, and it just transmits itself. You know, to use the original Dawkins version of meme. It's the meme that keeps on going and going and going and will not die because of the popularity of the argument. I mean, that's the element of sophistry right there, is that it just sounds convincing enough to be true.
Right.
It makes sense to the people because, I mean, and I've heard it said best like this. Women have always been the limiting factor in human reproduction. So biologically speaking, men and women alike have always grown to the sort of evolutionary desire to protect women, you know, just in case our species goes extinct. I mean, you have 10 men and 1 woman, your next generation has 1 baby. You have 10 women and 1 man, your next generation has 10 babies. I mean,
slightly incestuous, but anyway.
I mean, but you understand what I'm saying. It's the idea that our species is so reliant on females that gynocentrism is natural. But at the same token, so going back to the wage gap myth, it sounds so reasonable to say it because it makes more sense that women need something than don't need something. So it makes sense to say, just from a purely biological standpoint, that women need more money than not more money, just from a very basic standpoint.
Yeah, and I think that's... I was gonna say, I think that's a general argument though, and I think I'm gonna keep bringing up Sargon. He points out the kind of like the Marxist nature of how the gynocentrism works is inherent, but it's mostly my issue with it is that it doesn't necessarily acknowledge what it's doing while, like, this argument doesn't acknowledge what it's doing while it's doing it. Like, yes, I agree that the biological imperatives say that we should be protecting women, and in fact, it's my natural, like,
and children.
Like someone hit my sister, like their car, like they got in a car accident and they hit my sister, and I remember, distinctly feeling like rage, and I was like, that's not cool, because I don't even know what happened, but it's just a natural thing. But I think the issue is that when we bring arguments like that, when it's obviously just like an interpersonal dynamic, and when we bring individual cases of it like that into the public sphere and say this is, precedent to change everything, is what my issue is. It's like, cool, yes, women do generally need something when they, are going through childbirth and things like that, or when they actually need resources, but it's more upsetting that it has to be overarching and has to be like a principle on which other arguments are reliant upon, because it doesn't make sense.
Just going back to when we were just briefly talking about intersectional feminism, and I think it was Kevin said that it was a means to keep feminism relevant. I actually don't think so. I think that the way feminists phrase things and the way they operate, they have found ways to keep themselves relevant no matter what, even without branching into other issues.
Well, they seem to somewhat branch out into other issues, but they don't seem to branch out into issues that actually affect anything but, like, interpersonal politics. I don't think I have seen anything, unless you're in Sweden, that they actually, it actually affects real public policy And for the most part, people don't want to be just. They don't want to be anti-woman, and I think that's really what my gripe was, is that they've made it an anti-feminist issue is now an anti-woman issue.
Yeah.
So it's
And
no
they've done that
longer
through a
okay to
very-
criticize it.
And they've done that through a very successful PR campaign that has sort of subconsciously conflated the term feminist with woman by claiming to represent all women for all times through so many media, through news, through books, through everything. They put themselves into a position of power where they literally can tap into the biological responses of everyone, male and female alike, and push their agenda. And this is why we're seeing it as such a pernicious problem today.
I was going to say, there's a reason that they use Freud a lot. It's because they draw from Freud a lot. Is because they're really trying to exploit the relationships you either have or don't have with your parents, or the opposite sex in your life. It's just that's what it seems to constantly be. It's like you're constantly doing something that has this deeper meaning, like you want to fuck your mom or something like that. Like Jesus, there really isn't even that. Like David Pakman was doing to Sargon, not allowing him to, not allowing the possibility of thought compartmentalization,
That's horseshit. Like, just people compartmentalize things all the time. It's how allies of convenience work.
Yes. That's another thing that I tried to kind of push, that we are allies of convenience, especially in Ultras. Like, we all kind of bonded against a common enemy of like whiny, wimpy, moist censorship is really what we were not cool with, even to the extent of like tone policing, if we want to call it that. I just mean, like, that's what we were originally for as Ultras, at least as far as I could tell. Like, I didn't like how Ian was shit on the way out of the Gamergate group, so it was kind of, that's the way I saw it. It's just, we were fighting this elsewhere, and now we're fighting it here, and now we're fighting it somewhat again, except for...
This is kind of what happens. This is kind of what happens when a movement loses its main impetus.
Yeah.
I mean, you've heard... I'm assuming you've all watched Sargon's vid on We've Won Gamergate. We technically have, because we've got Kotaku, and we've starved Kotaku and Gawker into having ethics policies. We even got fucking Leigh Alexander having ethics policies.
Yeah, but I think I would absolutely agree with you that yes, Gamergate's objectives have been completed. It's done. But to say that and to use that as the excuse, well, not the excuse, but to say that and say, okay, now it's over. I mean, I think A, that's premature, and B, that's missing something. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, it's not so much over, but we have completed our main objectives, and now we're kind of in that transitional period where we're kind of floundering about looking for a new concentrated enemy. And personally, I think we should focus on Anita Sarkeesian.
Now that we have found connections with her in Silverstring Media and Night of the Necro Dancer and stuff like that, so it is definitely possible, and we could even, it still technically is ethics at this point too.
Yeah, and let's keep in mind, we've defeated, defeat I guess is not the right word, but I mean, I'll use it anyway. We've defeated, a lot of the unethical policies of most of the major games media outlets, but we have to keep in mind that a lot of those who oppose us and have opposed us are still in very strong positions because of those unethical practices in the past. And not to mention the fact that A, the media is still against us, B, mainstream culture is still against us, and C, these people are still against us. I mean, there's still a lot of work to do, and we can't just say, okay, we've accomplished. I was in a group with Robin Gething a few months ago, and he was satisfied because we had succeeded in a lot of
I think.
groups.
Okay, now I think now that we've gotten the ethics policies in place, and we've kind of settled into this watchdog mentality. I think what we should do now is, in addition to maintaining the watchdog mentality, but we should pretty much disregard the likes of Wu, Harper, Quinn.
So I agree with that. I guess the one thing before you continue is I want to add there's only we can only do that to some extent, especially since Randy Harper seems to take it upon herself once a month to find a new way to attack us, like
Well,
on
no,
a real level. Like,
obviously.
so
No,
it's
obviously, I'm talking about like what pretty much has happened with Quinn. She's pretty much in the background. We laugh at her whenever she does something, and then she fades away again. So what we should do, we should treat Wu and Harper the same way as we treat Quinn, and just focus. I've kind of noticed. I'm sure we've all noticed it, but we've all noticed that Anita Sarkeesian is there in the background.
Mm-hmm.
She might sling all the misandrist, generalistic bullshit on her Twitter.
Yeah, all the toxic masculinity assertions and stuff.
Yeah, but what she's really doing, she's politically maneuvering. She is a woman who knows what she is doing.
Yes. I mean, that's kind of been very well established. I was going to say before on that, is she... I mean, would that be someone that it's easy... Because if we want to go after her, we're going to have to pay very much attention to her. But I think Wu really is... not you, Kevin, of course, but Wu is really on the outs anyway. Like, I haven't actually... like, especially with how they kind of turned on her with everything on her game, and people are even saying, okay, cool, I don't have to lie about it anymore, cool, Wu's game is crap. And it's like...
It was crap.
It really was. You know, like I don't like iPhone games. I love a lot of turn-based stuff, but it's like turn-based is an easy thing to figure out as far as like you don't have to really worry about collision. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff programming, and she still can figure it out.
You know what really pisses me off about Revolution 60 is the fact that a great game like Infinity Blade was made on the same fucking engine, and it has graphics it has graphics that rival consoles and gameplay that is quick, intuitive, and fucking addictive.
Yeah, as slow and clunky as the Android version of A Bard's Tale was, it was a much better game than Revolution 60. Like, it was genuinely entertaining and actually a good, like, the writing was good. Like, that's my biggest issue with Revolution 60 is they always talk about story and shit, and they can't put a fucking decent story together to save their lives. It's absolutely maddening.
Oh no, I had this really weird dream once. You're gonna fucking laugh at me for this, but I dreamed that Revolution 62, the sequel for Revolution 60, was going to be a AAA first-person shooter, and it was fucking awesome.
Shit. See, I think if that was going to be the sense, then Brianna Wu's parents would have kicked her out of the entire company and ran it themselves. Because I imagine if they can make enough money to keep shoveling it at her, they'll probably make a better video game than she can.
Yeah. But I suppose that's the thing is that, I mean, like, you look at a lot of these, like, Lifshitz as well. I mean, like, let's face it, we all know why. Lifshitz, you know,
what
Alex.
Is he even in? But like, why is he even in that circle? Like, what does he do outside of being Zoe Quinn's strange boyfriend?
He's not even.
Well, his thing is that he has money, so therefore influence. I mean,
he's not even her boyfriend. I don't think he's her fucking fuck toy.
Okay,
that's what I think.
Weird.
Yeah, well, he is fucked up.
This is a little.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say about that? What were you gonna say, Kevin? Like, what does he actually do?
That was pretty much it. That's pretty much it. Like, he's Quinn's living sex toy and money machine.
Probably like most of the boyfriends, at least, she's had. I mean, especially with like Mallory Nasrallah coming out with that big old post talking about her running into Zoe Quinn and doing the photography and stuff for her like a long time ago. That was kind of a big
shit.
That was kind of just a big revealing thing for me, and I don't necessarily, think that attacking someone's character is a good idea. But when they can't back up their arguments and they're harassing people and they're doxing people and they steal and kind of cheat, it's like, yeah, I don't have any problem with outing her on that. But realistically, someone brought this up just recently, or I just saw it posted on one of the groups. Zoe Quinn really, like, she doesn't have much to do with it other than the fact that she was implicated in the original thing. That's it. It's just she was implicated with Nathan Grayson. And the fact is, the person who was bringing this up said we should be like everyone should be pissed at Nathan Grayson because...
Oh yeah, no, and I was just going to bring up Nathan Grayson. He's really who like in the whole Five Guys scandal, in the whole like pre-GG sort of mess. I was really surprised that not more attention was being paid to Nathan Grayson because he'd sort of faded into the background as one of the Five Guys, along with nobodies like Robin Arnott.
Burgers and fries.
Yeah, exactly.
We can thank Stephen. Oh, go ahead.
Internet aristocrat.
Well, I was going to say, I think we can thank Stephen Totilo for that because, I don't mean to blame Total Biscuit on this, but he wasn't really like tough on Stephen Totilo in that interview they did a long time ago. Like, he was very fair. I'll give him that, but he wasn't really tough on him. And I think if you were tough on him, you got more about it.
I don't think Total Biscuit is completely on our side, though. From what I can gather, like I haven't really paid that much attention to him. In fairness,
he supports us, but he is a lone agent, as he puts it. He's basically like I'm not part of a group, but I support calls for journalistic ethics and things like that.
So. He's a lot like John Tron is in a way. He has tacit support for us, but he has his own. Let's not forget, Total Biscuit has been fighting cancer and trying to run a show forever now. I was a fan of Total Biscuit back when I was a Wowhead, and he was one of the main people for me. But he's always been his own business. He's always been his own sort of his own project. And I think it was very wise of him, A, to stay neutral at the beginning, and B, to only show tacit support, because his own career is independent of all this. I mean, let's be frank here, all this drama. So
let's face it.
Somewhat. Oh, well, go ahead, Colin.
Sargon only really became relevant when he got involved in Gamergate.
I picked him up just from hearing him in the few streams that IA had with like King of Pole and Short Fat Otaku and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's I only heard of him. Like, basically my progression in Gamergate was I originally found Thunderfoot. Yeah. Then I found Christina Haas Summers, I think, was next, and then it was Sargon.
Yeah. Well, personally, I came through similar routes. I mean, I've been following Thunderfoot since the whole Atheist Plus mess. I mean, I'm coming from this whole culture war here. I'm coming from the division in the secular community so many years ago now. That was where I sort of entered the discussion, and I've been following Thunderfoot ever since. And he started talking about Anita Sarkeesian, and so I started looking her up, and I started. Seeing videos from other people related to it, and I entered the discussion through GG. So I mean, I came in here through Thunderfoot, and it's opened up this whole world of just very strange. I mean, I knew there was something wrong, but it's like it's funny because at first I thought Zoe Quinn was Rebecca Watson. Like I got them confused at first. So at first I'm like, wow, is that why she's relevant? It's like, oh no, they're two different people. That's interesting.
Zoe Quinn isn't even a real name.
Yeah, well, of course that's not a real name. And what's funny to me is that she's gone through like multiple ones, and they all have to, or most of them have to do with like alt porn. And but I mean, like, I don't care. Like, dude, Suicide Girls, yeah, they're hot, cool, awesome. But here's my only problem with it is that it's so misrepresenting of who she is as a person to call herself Zoe Quinn. Like, she's some fucking alter ego for a Batman, superhero or villain. Like, it's just not. That's my problem, is that there's just this extra pretentious, I think I'm cool. It's just the new breed of it. Instead of calling yourself Cher or Madonna, it's now Zoe Quinn. Like, you really have been penned by some mustachioed.
Let's be fair here. My name isn't actually Kevin Wu, so I mean, before we start pointing fingers,
I didn't necessarily think it was, but I figured it didn't matter because you're not actually trying to build a career off of your name.
I kind of think I noticed you a few times and didn't pass many remarks. I legitimately thought you were just another Asian guy on the group.
With the profile picture, it's quite misleading. Yes.
Yeah, it's because it's just like on the millions of strangers like you see on groups and stuff, like you really I've just kind of learned to just not pass judgment on their profile pics because,
yeah.
well, I suppose I've kind of reached. I reached the conclusion, the very egalitarian conclusion, that people are people, and I should judge them on their character rather than their appearance or whatever. Well, not directly. I mean, like, appearances do send messages, but things like profile pics, if you get my meaning.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to note that I mean, Zoe Quinn, she creates this alternate name for herself to gain attention, to gain popularity. Whereas people like myself, you know, you have to create a pseudonym for yourself for your own protection, for your own identity. And Sargon's the same way. Internet Ariska, or Mr. Medicare now is the same way. It's like, not to compare myself to those people, of course, but I mean, people put these pseudonyms forward for their own safety, for their own protection.
Yeah, that's kind of why I was going with the Rad Serling thing instead of going with my name. Like, I don't care if people hear my first name or anything, but you know, like, and I don't even think I'm gonna have any real trouble out here in the valley. Like, there really is no one out here to, you know, cause any real trouble. So,
Ireland's still coming out of its mega conservative age, so I'm pretty safe. And even if they did,
yeah.
and even if they did, even if I did get doxxed, I'd just make a vid pointing out how stupid it is to send me knives, because I could then use those knives to defend myself if someone should come knocking.
Right? Like, I'm gonna send someone a working weapon.
It's so stupid. It was like, I just look at these and it's just like, why would I be intimidated by you handing me a weapon that I can then to stop you?
Well, now that's a weapon they can't use. I mean,
exactly.
That's right. It's right. It's like throwing a grenade without a pin, or without pulling the pin.
Yeah, with the pin.
But I was gonna say someone should make a quick phone app, or at least an online little web applet to basically. Who was it? It wasn't Peter Garvin. Who was the guy who issued the duel offer? On a foot or on horse.
Stanton.
Richard, thank you.
Richard Stanton. Yeah. I'm a 6'2" Glaswegian.
Yeah, I basically want to make an app that basically says you can send a dual invite to someone and they get 2 drop-down menus. One of them is like gun or pistol, sword, mace. You know, just basically do like we did with the Masters of the Wooniverse, but set it up for SJWs versus Gamergate.
I swear to God,
I think that would be mega entertaining.
When I saw that, I was literally just like, it was just like, Rich, you're a fucking wanker.
Yeah, like I can't imagine that. Like I've been angry even at groups on the internet where I thought, like really, if I saw you, I would have torn you in half. Like they're really, that sort of thing. But I don't think about it as like I'm going to issue a straight up challenge over the internet where it's going to sound like I think I'm, just coming from like I just brought my squire up next to me and he just, unrolled this roll of weapons for me to choose from. It's like
what I think we should do is we should all starting sending letters to the Pope and commission a crusade to San Francisco.
That would be fantastic.
Like we'd be like, dear Pope, these people are undermining your values and such and such. And we can claim that Aeneas Sarkeesian has been killing pilgrims on their way to the Holy Land. And then we petition a crusade, and then we can sort of attack it back for Christendom. I mean, even though a lot of us are atheists, I mean, who doesn't want to go on a crusade? I mean, it's been like 800 years,
It's kind of like the same thing that guys want to do a heist together. We also totally want to do a crusade together.
I don't know. I kind of want to do a crusade more in the vein of 40K.
Oh, like just straight up Space Marines and much more scorched earth.
And the Sisters of Battle.
There you go. Yeah, that would be a very fun way to do it.
Just stay away from the Sister Repentia and try and convince the other ones that they're doing it for the Emperor, if you know what I mean.
See, this is why I think that this specific op we could be doing in the douchey just very, very. At least it would work best from the douchey itself. If we're actually going to start a crusade. Let's see.
Actually, that just
Oh, there will be the immediate Patreon backfire though. That is a problem. We can take all their money while we're at it. We can take all their money while they're at it.
See, this is why I think it's not necessary that that anyone uses Patreon, especially if it's enough people. Like it as long as you set up a website where there's secure pay, it really doesn't matter. I was going to say it sucks that PayPal also dropped their support of Frederick Brennan, but it's still not awful. Like I just brought up Bitcoin.org because I'm going to try to make a video just making it easy so that people know how to set up a wallet if they want to donate directly to Hot Wheels, because it's very shitty to try to like navigate through it on your own. But even Bitcoin.org has really well delineated steps and and stuff for different platforms. But I think that's really one thing I wanted to mention as well was if anyone is does pay attention to this video and is interested in trying to help out 8chan stay on the web, because I don't necessarily want to be relegated back to KIA and Twitter, definitely try to set up a Bitcoin wallet and go to 8chan.co to find his address so you can send him some cash, because he is in dire need of it at this point.
I'll cut him a check directly if he wants.
I think you might actually have to. I know he does run the 8chan.co Twitter, so I know that's not a bad place to start if you wanted to. If you can find his, I know his address is on 8chan.co somewhere, but if you go to the Twitter and ask him for an address, I'm sure he'll DM you one.
Mm.
But I mean, just in case if you're actually going to mail a check, but we'll see how that goes.
Actually, while we're on the topic of Gamergate military campaigns, I had this really weird idea once. I was walking into town, and I just kind of molded in my mind, but I was walking into my local town one day. I just thought I was there listening to headphones. I had this really weird idea where Gamergate suddenly became this massive fantasy battle. Like it was the legions of Gamergate versus the hordes of Agros.
So, I mean, I feel like that should be done, or I mean, we could do that in a game, I guess I would say. There's enough. If we were talking about medieval 2, there's Civilization. There's a few things we can do that and put mods on, kind of like Sargon does with his Perfidious Albion videos and stuff.
Yeah, but, I would. For some reason, I envisioned Sargon riding into battle on elephants.
Yeah, I was gonna say he is very Hannibal-esque. It's interesting he chose Sargon because he's more like Hannibal, at least the way he attacks people.
But I guess Hannibal was already taken with our little SJW friends, so
No, that's true. That's true, and it's tough, especially with so many history buffs on YouTube and podcasting that are just into Greek and Roman history. It's going to be tough to find someone who hasn't already taken the cool names.
Although Sargon of Akkad is an awesome name.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. I was actually kind of jealous because I had actually done a good report on him when I was in high school, and most people don't actually know who he is. Like people who actually know good about
history. I didn't know who he was. Well, that's kind of the thing, though. Like we do very Eurocentric history in this part of the world.
Yeah, even in the U.S., it's kind of the same. We have a lot of Eurocentric history. I mean, they do talk about American history some, like we have our own class for it, but there is a lot of Eurocentric stuff. In fact,
in fairness, no offense to the United States, but you guys only have about just over 500 years of history.
Oh, definitely. I was going to say, I actually don't. I mean, I'll be the first person to talk shit on the American education system, just even going through public schooling myself, and kind of like becoming misanthropic just seeing how little the other people were being. Well, it's just how little other people were being actually taught. And it's just like, shit, I'm learning all this stuff on my own. You kids are fucked. Like, you people are fucked. I don't know how else to say it. Sorry.
Yeah, I was slightly privileged. I got to go to a private school for a while, but then I got sick of boarding, so I came home. And now I'm sent off for being really, really smart.
Yeah. Let's say I think it's still like, even if you start well, and as long as you have the idea that you want to learn, it kind of doesn't matter. But I do think that's the issue with most of the public schooling here in the U.S. is it's very motivation killing here. It kind of smothers a good amount of creativity, and as you can see, we now have hug boxes in fucking academia, so there's really no way to actually learn anything anymore.
Yeah. And it's the same problem here in Canada. I mean, we are just suffering from it, and Canada has a lot more of a leftist bent anyways, so I mean, we've really sort of like buckled hard. And I'm in academia myself, so it's very visible. I mean, it's obviously visible, and I feel really, you know, I feel sorry for kids growing up today who are being forced to, because when I was young, when I was going through school, there wasn't a lot of this agenda pushing. I mean, there was a bit. I mean, it was just on the cusp. It was just starting, but I mean, now it's actively in the curriculum. So I mean, kids growing up today are in such a worse position than even the last generation was.
Well, and also the thing is, guys are even more fucked over because it's all based around sort of rote learning, and girls are just, on average, better at that.
Well, and here's the problem. I mean, already more women are getting degrees than men. More women are, you know, are do better in school already, and yet because of the way our society is, all the incentive programs, all the attention is still being placed on women. So we're creating this sort of feedback loop of horrible education for boys.
Yeah.
So,
I get it. It's like, it really sort of that really does sort of piss me off, because it's like, I swear to God, if I ever start a company, I'm never doing affirmative action. I don't care if the SJWs torch my fucking office. I will sue them. I will sue them for property damages and tell them to fuck off before.
That's basically all you can do. I mean, there's no way that, and I mean, but it's been proven. Like, there's no reason that the quotas actually do anything, or there's nothing that the quotas actually do anything, and there's no reason to keep them. I have.
Do you want to know some interesting? Do you want to know the interesting fact about? I suppose you guys all know the negative end, like after Ellen Pao. I mean, like, personally, even if I was to have affirmative action, I'd crack down twice as hard on those who got in by affirmative action because you are being hired because you are an ethnic minority or a woman or something like that. I'm giving you double the privilege to work for me. Because let's face it, every employee is an investment.
Yes. Anything you do really in business, if you have a business, is an investment.
Exactly.
I've had like just run small businesses because I wasn't like, you know, I hadn't actually just didn't want to work at fucking Starbucks, and I didn't want to, you know, go to school right away. I actually went through school for about a semester or two to do music performance, but realized I wasn't cut out for it, so I dropped out and started getting jobs and trying to do like small businesses and stuff. I did like a mobile auto detailing and things like that, and I just remember like being pissed off at myself for just spending time not doing anything. So I think about it as like even my little like motions, like taking 10 minutes in the shower instead of 5 or whatever it even happens to be. I like looked at that as money, and I agree. It's just one of those things where it doesn't matter what your genitals, what your skin color, any of this stuff does. It doesn't even matter what your personality is. Like I get along so well with like like people who are dickheads in social situations, but as soon as they're in front of their desk, they fucking get work done. Like I would rather people like that work for me than people who were nice and didn't work as hard. Like, so I agree. It's just one of those things. I'd rather just see work ethic and innovation, or I guess you could say, or it's just like some kind of self-initiation. As it does piss me off that that's a huge thing. I actually could probably make a case that because I was a white male, I might not have been hired over other people at work, but I also could but mostly because my numbers were like massively higher than most people's, and I didn't get like bad reviews from customers. So it's one of those things where I kind of like, I don't want to go into that because I don't care enough to be like, oh, men are shit on in the economic world today, because it realistically at the end of the day it's still going to be on me to go and do something else, because I'm not going to go fucking back there. If they like decide to change it and then hire me and then admit that it was over something like that, then of course I'm not going to go back there, because they're liable to do it again. So it's tough.
I mean, like, just if I write stories every so often, and I've got sort of casts of characters, one of them is a video game dev, incidentally, as well as a couple of other awesome things. And well, he also sort of shares the no affirmative action policy, and anyone who like some sort of he was set up as in Gamergate, and in the wake of it, and you got all these hipsters looking for work, so some of them went to him and started getting all privileged, and this is a guy who does not take shit from anyone.
Yeah.
Which is ironic. It was kind of funny. They all sort of slagging him off for being this. He was from a rich kid, but his mother was Scottish, and she came from a not too bad end of Glasgow, but it was rough around the edges. And she had a very strong work ethic, and she very much tried to instill this in her children. This amounted to things like you don't get pocket money unless you do chores and stuff like that. She sort of let them have allowances, but they had to prove that they were actually working to have an allowance. This character circumvented this in an interesting way by becoming a call guy in college.
Okay. Well, you got to make money, right? You got to do something to make money.
It's sometimes brought up when people sort of slag him off for being not getting enough sex. He turns around and just says, "Dude, women have queued up and offered me money for sex."
There you go. Well, I mean, I think there's a couple of short stories that like random ones where that's kind of the, I guess I want to say the theme. And I think it would actually go kind of similarly to that. Like, truly, there are enough, especially with let's just say the advent of Netflix, there are enough, like, forever alone males and females to be, like, to have a prostitution market that actually would be quite booming. I know that sounds weird to say, but it's
trade is so lucrative. This stigma. Well, I don't believe in stigmatizing sex in general, but I mean, like, one of the big steps you can take is legalizing prostitution, and I mean, like, think of the fucking taxes.
Oh, well, not even just that. I mean, I'll be the first to admit, I think that I think that for the most part, taxes are not really the way to go. I think that sales tax is a good way. So I think that I agree with you that a good amount of things would be paid for over taxes. But how would you do that? That's really the issue. It's like I guess there would have to be, like, every hooker would have to be on Square or something.
Well, the thing is, also when you legalize it, you present them with you basically. Yeah. You mightn't destigmatize things immediately, but if you decriminalize it and make it legal, you can then put safeguards in place.
Yep.
For the process.
You essentially create government employees, and the government treats their own pretty well in most countries. So I mean, legalize prostitutes. I mean, you have better health care. You have lower rates of STDs. You have a ridiculous increase in the. I mean, let's just appeal to most people. I guess better standards for a lot of these working people who are mostly women, which is something you would bring up fairly early and fairly often. It would just. I mean, think about the women. Think about how these women would be women, and working women would have the chance to be women. I mean, it's that simple. But
also, when you take it out of the criminal world, things like beatings tend to stop.
Yeah, I think that's a big deal as far as it goes, mostly because I think it's a big deal because there are actually a good amount of issues that probably revolve around the lack of legalized prostitution in the U.S., like especially since there are hotbeds for it, like Atlantic City and Vegas, that it becomes it's dangerous to do it in Vegas because it's one of the few places that you can. It's this is weird that I'm going to bring up Marilyn Manson, but even in the wake of the Columbine shootings, he had like a productive talk with Bill O'Reilly, and that's so weird that Bill O'Reilly and Marilyn Manson can have a really good productive talk, but they both agreed on the fact that when people are genuinely oppressed, like when something is genuinely being held back or censored or something like that, usually a population like retaliates in an equal and opposite fashion. So yeah, exactly, and it's the same thing with like repressing sex, as you said. Stigmatizing sex just causes more problems because it is repressing a natural urge, a natural just part of being a human being. So it's a tough it ends up causing more issues than it solves. Like you're basically like stabbing holes in the bottom of a boat to drain it, and it doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, just even things like prohibition don't work because you waste so much fucking time trying to stop people from drinking.
Man,
it's just ridiculous.
Go ahead.
It's
absolutely.
I mean, like, people have their vices. When you demonize their vices,
there's a level there. Like, I mean, I guess you could still call me traditionalist. If it's really a traditionalist thing to be kind of like against pedophilia, then I'm definitely a traditionalist. But I think that there are certain things that are stigmatized for a reason because we realize the inappropriateness of them. Like, I don't care about BDSM relationships. I don't really care about homosexual relationships. Whatever you want to do, throw up on each other, do whatever the fuck you want. But I think once it gets into changing the psychology of someone else or something like that, and they're not legally able to consent, like if they have to have an adult around them to sign a contract and make it valid, then they should not be subjected to something that they can't change.
Did you watch the last This Week in Stupid, where they had the pedophile dad and mother decided to lock the kids in their fucking room? So
and I wish I could have been there. I wish I could have been there to see their reasoning as to why it was more important to keep this man around the woman. Like, to keep their relationship whole, to screw these little kids over at the same time. Like, I don't see the importance.
Have beaten the shit out of the social workers who did that. At least, well, maybe not kill them, but beaten them to the point where they'd be sufficiently afraid of me to change their decision.
My dad's technique is he thinks that, or he doesn't like the idea of using closed fists with people like that because they're usually going to fold anyway. So if you just slap them into a corner and just keep yelling at them and then just while they're cowering on the ground, that's what you do. But I just look at it as really there's really no other logical steps you could have taken in your mind to maybe think about the children. I know that's really weird. I hate using that phrase. Can someone think of the children, please? But
no, this is legit. This is legit. This is genuinely, we must think of the kiddies. Even though I hate the phrase as well. And it's mostly, thank you, stupid right-wing arseholes.
Well, yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, it sucks that so many of these things, like actual views, have been stigmatized. Because I'm not necessarily in for stigmatizing the SJW thing. Like, I think people should go and look at it and figure it out for themselves.
I think social justice is a good thing. Like, as I said, people are people, but
yeah, and that's another reason I kind of don't want. I don't necessarily want to. I've told enough people this too. I was just I want to keep our Anita Sarkeesian or someone like her around, so that we can still It's basically, if you have a pyramid and it's a pyramid of philosophies, if you want to say it like that, or a hierarchy of what generally is considered to be a better train of thought, then feminism still needs to be under something else to keep it propped up. It's basically there are anti-feminists, and there is this new kind of upsurge of reason in a good amount of the population because there is this giant section of people that is not very reasonable. So it's out of necessity we need to.
And I think you touched on something that's a very good point here, and that's the idea of balance. First of all, I mean, you have the issue that if you get rid of Anita Sarkeesian and their red femmes outright, I mean, something else will just take their place.
It happens all the time.
And not to mention the fact that the reason we're in this predicament right now is as a society we give too much credence to, because for the longest time the skills were tipped in a very opposite direction. And because we started giving credence to this group of individuals and more and didn't defy them, they were given so much power that it's that sort of balance between these two ideas where if one side completely wins, they take over and create an inquisition, which is what we're in the midst of now. And I think that's what and I think tipping the balance the other way and saying, even though things that I agree with, if the things that I agree with were to become too powerful, what would happen is you'd have another inquisition, except in the opposite direction. So I think the issue is not to defeat them outright, and is not to is to completely scrub them from the face of the earth, but to create a sustainable balance, an equilibrium, if you will, that'll keep both groups competing against each other, but in a position where they can't overtake the other.
Well, I mean,
Right.
that's literally one of the most self-evident points ever, because what societies have worked the best?
It's the ones that allow at least the most free speech, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I mean, like
Like,
Athens outlasted Sparta as a civilization, even though it was conquered by the Romans, and it was one of the world's first true democracies. Sparta caved in on itself because of its own practices, its own military, totalitarian, monolithic structure.
it worked for quite a while, and it should have been allowed to thrive as it wanted to, but yeah, I agree. It was destined to kind of collapse because of its kind of draconian take on most interpersonal relationships and things like that.
Yeah, and this is where we've gone with feminism. Like they've become the authority, and now they're just flaunting it around the place.
Well, it's the personal has become political thing. I truly think that that's what the reasoning is because there are so many people that are apolitical. Their only moral crusades that happen are in interpersonal things. So it ends, because it's easy. It is very easy to criticize someone for saying or for calling someone darling and then laughing. It's very easy to criticize for that. It is not.
Well, no, that's trolling on Milo's part. Let's be honest. That was Milo saying that deliberately to piss her off.
But he was. Right, but also to shut her the hell up, because she was interrupting him when he was trying to make a point she had asked him to make, basically. And I think that it was a perfect place for him to troll, because it was like, I know exactly how she's going to react, I know exactly what they're going to say, and I'm still I'm going to be happy about it, because they're so easily manipulatable and predictable. Truly, I thought that was a really good demonstration, to be honest.
I remember when the comedian, I can't remember her name, Sarah McCord, called her Feminist 1.
Smurthwaite. Catherine Smurthwaite.
Yeah, Smurthwaite. I just remember when she said, "Oh, but if my show is not perfect, I'm going to get criticized." Women, and I'm just sitting here like, lady, are you sure they're not just criticizing feminist comedians?
Yeah. I was going to say, that doesn't necessarily even follow for me. I mean, it does. I was going to say, but because I criticize tons of feminist comedians, I would say Sarah Silverman is at the spearhead of that one. But it's like there are still feminist comedians who don't care. Like, they're feminists because they feel like they should be for, whatever reason they've been convinced. But I was going to say Amy Schumer still does bits where she pisses off feminists and doesn't care. I was going to say Wanda Sykes is another feminist comedian, if you want to call it that she talks about doing jokes at a feminist convention. She was like, those people have no sense of fucking humor. She was like, listen, it's great, all you women here, but I got to get out of here. My husband needs a sandwich, and no one laughed and shit like that. She's willing to make jokes and shit, and I think that's actually the issue, is that we have enough people that don't have the sense of humor.
But I think that's one of the best ways of getting rid of prejudice, is to satirize it, is to make it stupid, is to make it look like what it is.
Go ahead, Kevin. What were you going to say? I agree with that.
So I've always sort of seen feminism as a sort of current secular religion, and I think why a lot of these more famous people are adopting the title is for the same reason a lot of prominent people in the Middle Ages adopted Catholicism, even if they were believers in name only. I mean, you have a lot of how many people of science, of thinking, of whatever could honestly tell you that they were practicing, believing Catholics back in the day, but they did it for their own safety. They did it for their own security within the community, because if you were excommunicated, that was it. And I think it's the same thing in celebrity culture today, is to say that you've adopted the title, to say you've quote unquote converted to the secular religion. What you're doing is you're giving yourself security, you're giving yourself safety, because these people are not stupid. They know that in the position they're in, if they don't toe this line, they're completely screwed. And I think that's the same reason why people like Wanda Sykes, people like Amy Schumer, adopt these titles and yet do things against, the quote-unquote feminist pope, if you will. So I mean, I think this is the issue when we have celebrities, is people adopting the title for their own security.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think the one difference that I think about them in there is that I think some of them truly do believe that the movements are worth their salt, or at least are doing something good, but they don't think that they agree with the main strain of them. At least that's what it seems like to me. Like I think Amy Schumer is like a sex positive feminist, and I obviously a sex positive feminist. She like constantly talks about her, she would even call them slutty escapades. Like she talks about them and makes jokes about them because she realizes how ridiculous the behavior is. And there are people, even feminists, who criticize her constantly on that. So I think it's mostly like, regardless of the ideology anyone holds, I think you have to have a sense of humor about it. Like even us in ultras, we got to be able to make fun of ourselves here.
Well, I think that's the thing is that with these celebrities, like what I said about corporate feminism, this is kind of another form of it. But the more you eat your own shit, the more you're going to learn to like it.
Yeah. Yes.
I know that's a very disgusting image.
It is, but if you do it for 11 years, your taste buds will change to accommodate it. So, but
I'm pretty sure honestly, any of the
it's all right. It was the 0 viewers before. Oh wait, do we have a viewer now? Hold on.
Oh my God, my black comedy is good.
We have 1 viewer. Whoever you are, I am entirely sorry about the content of this podcast. But yeah, I was going to say that honestly, my main point, I guess, across the entirety of all of this is that I think we should try to not be casual, because it's not even about that. It's about kind of having a sense of humor and not letting the stress of this stuff get to us to the extent that we actually have to be at each other's throats, because there really hasn't been a viable reason for that other than to make sure that there isn't any actual in-group or in-group censorship or any non-productive infighting. Because like realistically, I'm not that great at the digging. Like I can do some research, but for the most part, I'm kind of there to at least provide my point of view on things and to try to keep people in a good mood so that they don't pull shit like this. Because
I mostly just post SJW jokes. I don't know if I saw all caps Creed on. I think it was one of John. It was in Reckoning. It was one of the guys.
Let me see if I can.
It was some guy being grateful that Kevin was in charge of a GG group, Canadian representation, and then I went off.
That's right.
Off on a screed about how we need more Irish people.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I'm cool with that. Get them. I don't know. I don't think I've heard any other actual Irish people on any streams, so I couldn't necessarily tell you that there is an Irish person or another group of Irish people to grab. But I honestly my whole goal with I guess for reaching out in these groups was to know that it was cool in other countries, or at least know that it was a good thing in other countries, because I thought it was an Americentric thing at first, and then hearing TBD start talking about it, I was just like, oh, okay, maybe not, because being that it all came out of San Francisco and us apologetic Californians that don't live in San Francisco constantly. Honestly, a lot of us constantly feel like we have to cover up for them because they truly make the rest of our state look like shit.
Yeah, I'm a non-apologetic Californian technically. I was born in Laguna Hills, and I lived in Dana Point for a few months.
Oh, okay. Yeah, actually, I have some family that's kind of near down there now.
So you were born in the States then?
Yeah.
Oh.
I am the most literal definition of Irish American in the world.
There you go. Damn. I was gonna say I don't have any actual I probably couldn't tell anyone my actual ethnic affiliations, if you want to call it that. I know my last name is very German, but I found out that my dad's mom was kind of a whore, and she slept around even after marrying my grandfather, and so I guess he's not really even my grandfather, and she slept with a Swiss Italian lounge singer, so I guess I'm Swiss Italian. Right? Thank you. It is as hilarious as I thought it was. And here's the funniest thing is that as soon as we figured out, my dad looked at me and said, well, now I know what it takes to get my mom in bed.
A Swiss Italian lounge singer.
Right? I feel like that's a character just in itself.
Like that's a character on a show. Like that is someone you see in fiction alone.
Yes. That's like
You know, I found this really funny, but I found it funny like on my own, like a crazy person laughing in an empty room. But it is much funnier than I even thought it was. Really,
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Like I picture this like suave, like doo-wop haircutted Italian, like greasy Swiss with like this thick German Swiss accent, walking in this zoot suit. And your grandmother's just there.
A tiny bit of Italian in it.
Yeah, just the smallest bit. Go ahead.
Just to give it a bit of song.
And he looks right into your grandmother's eyes, and immediately the connection is fierce. Just this love between
her beady,
her
beady dark Russian eyes. It's the weirdest couple.
I bet later sign contracts.
Good Christ.
I actually have one character who's Northern Irish Italian.
See, that's a weird.
Well, I mean, you need a Swiss Italian lounge singer now. You can have your characters visit Dublin, and they go to a pub, and tonight there's a Swiss, and you can have him like making like bedroom eyes with beady-eyed Russian lady.
Right, the guy who I said set up the game dev studio. Yeah, he's bisexual. So as soon as he hears Swiss Italian lounge singer, he's probably going to start trying to get him into bed. Just for the sheer sake of us saying like Swiss Italian lounge singer.
See, when I hear that phrase over and over, or I guess when I hear someone say Swiss Italian lounge singer, like I see someone who is genuinely handsome. Genuinely handsome, and just like it's like he's on the underside or the hypo side of greasy, like most Italians are. So he's not too greasy to be attractive.
He's got the German nose and the Italian skin color.
Good God. Yeah, there were no olive-colored Germans. That's just unfair.
I just picture this
There were, then Hitler came.
Oh, that's right.
I just picture this hard to find German features, sort of like I'm picturing almost like an Arab looking Rick Astley right now.
That's one of the best characters I could ever, like, no one could come up with. Like, seriously, I should do like a bard, like I should roll a bard that is basically an Aryan Rick Astley. That would be fucking amazing.
Well, no, you can't.
Oh, I guess dark Italian, you mean?
Yeah, like sort of like not an Aryan, but more like an Arab looking. So like he has like the dark like Arab features. Sort of like
gotcha.
With like the olive skin and the defined like with the Rick Astley style. So it's like
with that hair.
Yeah.
With that
exactly.
With the cyclone hair. Oh my God. Yeah, no, that would be fantastic. And we should start trolling like Arab news sites with like an Arab version of Never Gonna Give You Up, and just keep sending them videos as if we have like breaking news.
Have you guys watched the Allahu Akbar compilations?
Oh, they're amazing. Yeah, they never get old, in my opinion.
They can't get old. The car one, it's just so fucking funny.
They used to genuinely scare the shit out of me because I expected a different video to come up, and then it would just be like, I don't even know how else to put it. It would just be like something from goddamn like Teletubbies, and then someone would say Allahu Akbar, and then you just see a bunch of giant explosions. I'm just thinking, what the fuck is going on in my life right now?
I love the SpongeBob ones.
Oh yeah, those are fantastic.
They're just talking in like their retarded voices, and it's just suddenly heavily. They just switch to this deep Arab voice, like Allahu Akbar.
Well, you can hear the chants under it. Like, and you're like, Jesus Christ, what's going on?
or the one. I think they must have ripped the footage out of 2012, but the one where the Arab guy jumps out of the plane and then crashes into London and just.
Oh, so I have a question. Just on this level, have you? And speaking, I guess it's all encompassing because of the video games and stuff. Have you guys seen the movie Postal, the one that Uwe Boll did?
No.
No, I'm not gonna. I'm not ever touching one of his movies. They sound
I've
horrible.
I've only ever seen In the Name of the all three of the In the Name of the Kings and one of the Blood Rain movies.
So
Oh.
I didn't. So he bought up all the rights to do kind of his own movies. So Postal is the one that I would say is worth watching.
Really?
Out of
Postal
the,
sounds like such an amazing game on its premise alone.
No,
Like
well, yeah.
the second one
Even
more.
the owner, the creator of Postal, was in the movie because he thought it was hilarious that Uwe Boll wanted to do a movie on Postal. So they didn't take it seriously at all, like either of them. So it is worth watching.
Now, before you say these things, keep in mind, In the Name of the King had King Burt Reynolds. Just keep that
That's
in
right.
mind.
I know. And that's the Uwe Boll style, though. It's just like we're only going to be campy in the places I want us to be campy.
like the casting alone, Jason Statham
Yeah.
protagonist, okay. King Burt Reynolds, okay. You had Ray Liotta, the sorcerer.
Yeah, see, these are great casting.
It's just like he found a list of all of his favorite actors and didn't care which roles they were even in.
It's just fuck all the names in one hat and all the roles in another.
So here's the reason I want to say that Postal is worth it. It's really like, I'll just tell you the first scene because it is absolutely perfect. So it's two Arab terrorists or Muslim terrorists. They have hijacked a plane. And yeah, they're in the cockpit, and they're just kind of chatting, and they start arguing about how many virgins they're going to get in heaven, because they both got told different numbers. And so they're like arguing. They're like, no, I swear, Osama told me it was like 22, and he's like, really, 22? I was told like 100. I'm not cool if it's
the guy who had the more. I would believe in the one who had more.
Right, and I feel like that's where they should have gone, but one of them's just like, I'm going to call him now. I'm going to call him right now. Let's clear this up. And he calls him up while they're in the plane, and he's like, hey, Sammy. And then he's just like, it starts getting quiet, and he's like, really? Really? Oh my God. And then hangs up, and he says, I guess we're only going to get one or two. There've just been way too many shaheeds, and there's not enough virgins to go around anymore. And they both kind of look at each other, and he's like, you want to give up on this? And then he just, yeah, I'm not really into it. So what they do is they start to open up the cockpit door so that they can tell the rest of the plane that they're going to go, and we're just going to go to Bermuda, guys. The terrorist attack is over. And the crowd of the plane just barrels into the cockpit and basically crowds in so hard that it takes the plane down and it runs right into the Twin Towers. Truly one of the most ridiculous beginnings to a movie ever, and that's why it's worth watching. They truly were just mean fucking this movie. Following true Postal style.
The ones I love are the ones where they take the piss out of 9/11, and they're just it's just like the most random scene involving a plane crash, and then just suddenly the footage of 9/11.
Oh yeah, they kept doing the same ones, even through between the Pentagon and stuff like that. I saw one that was 5 minutes of them switching them, so it was just anytime they were doing the seconds leading up to the plane hitting the building, they would change it and it's the one at the Pentagon, or it's the Challenger crash, which is also an awful thing to have to bring up in the same place. But
I think one of the best, actually on this note, I saw these two amazing GTA 5 Thug Life moments, right? First one was a guy who was parachuting down, and this really shitty propeller plane crashed into him. Now, as one would expect, the physics engine should be programmed such that the guy who was parachuting would get taken out and fall to his death, right? Yes. The wing of the plane breaks off, it falls to the ground, and explodes.
What? And just the wing off the plane as it hits a dude?
It just hits him, and then it just falls to the ground.
And see, that's why I've been having a lot of fun, at least in the main or online world in GTA, because of that. They have not fixed everything yet in the physics engine, so it's just the collision. What I've noticed is that happens in other places too. Did you see the video of the dude jumping out of the plane, then leaving his parachute behind and using his basically the glide function without the parachute to literally just land on a woman, and he didn't die, and she died. I was how the fun. Like it's they didn't fix everything, but I kind of like that you can break those.
Because they make for some excellent moments.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's kind of
like
the same. That's what I mean. I don't mind that at all.
Yeah, another one was really funny. A guy had taken a police chase onto a runway, and a plane was taking off, and he was in a bus. Plane hit the bus. The plane then fucking crashes. For whatever reason,
the bus is still going,
and it just tips and then flips and then falls into the ocean and explodes.
I gotta find some of these just because I honestly have been way too focused on the missions and stuff to actually just play around with the physics engine. I really should just do that tonight. But yeah, so I actually kind of need to start wrapping it up. I got a class to go to in about 15 minutes. But is there anything you guys wanted to add before we actually start wrapping this up? Or anything you wanted to at least reprise before?
If anyone is in Ireland and ever does find themselves on this podcast and at this end of it, I am organising. I want to organise a meetup in Ireland. You can we'll be posting in the hashtag. I'm using Dublin GG for now because, well, Dublin is the centre of Ireland, south of the border at least, which is where I'm based. And if anyone wants to find me, I'm at Callan Elliott.
On Twitter?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'll actually add you tonight. And Kevin, is there anything you wanted to add or reprise before we wrap up here?
Yeah. So just for any ultras who are watching this or listening or whatever to this, just do what you're doing now. Just keep going on and kind of keep your nose to things as they plan out. It's going to be a rough week or two from now, and but we have Ultras 2 on the go, and we'll just have to see how life goes.
Yeah, I guess on that same note, I'd like to add just that if anyone really does have any issues, just like within the groups, one, I would say try to direct message someone, just because you're never going to get, especially in a group of 1,500 that are somewhat watching the posts and seem to post when it's most inconvenient. I would say try to direct message at least someone, so you can try to work it out, because the most success I've had in this group, even especially, or either of the Ultras group, I guess I should say, is being able to speak with someone directly truly does help, because it's your conversation's not on display for the world, so no one has to hold up a reputation. And I think it's
look for the admins. Look for the admins that are posting at that moment as well.
That's right. If there is someone around, try to at least get them to pay attention to it, just so that you know. But in any case, I agree it might be a little bit tough from now on, or at least for the next couple of weeks, we should say. But I do think that for the most part, the changes that have started to come are good, or at least a lot of good can come out of them as long as we handle them correctly. But other than that, thank you guys for coming on. Hopefully, I'm going to try to get these types of things going, maybe weekly, if not weekly, bi-weekly. But I guess bi-weekly would make sense. But yeah, other than that, thanks again, and hopefully you guys have a good night, and hopefully we can keep everything diplomatic on both the groups.
Take
care, guys.
One very last thing. Going to put this out to reckoning. Should we set up a Skype group?
I was thinking that was a good idea if we wanted to do these without. I usually use Google Hangouts. I don't mind setting up a Skype group though. That doesn't bother me.
Yeah, we'll start talking about that, and we'll kind of see if anyone's interested, and we'll put that together as soon as we can. But we'll see how things go. Hopefully we can get a Skype. I was hearing on the Ultras page a lot of people are interested in a Skype group, so we'll work something out.
Well, since Ian dropped the other one, so I imagine that's been a thing that's been wanted for a while now.
Yeah, I think they had one before, but too many fucking 12-year-old Let's Players.
There was a lot of bullshit going on, and it was hard to keep people, I guess, productive. I was just like listening in on most of them. But I know that was disbanded, so I know people are itching to have another Skype group.
Yeah,
so
I don't think we should just let people in. I think we should pay attention to the members list and really own.
Yeah, and more or less. I mean, I have been kind of indiscriminately adding people in. I'll monitor behavior from this moment onwards. But as a smaller group, we have the opportunity to kind of flush out and keep away all the sort of like normies, all the people who are just here to lurk and hang on. And if we do make a Skype group with Ultras too, we'll have a lot more limited memberships. So people actually want to have a discussion, will be in the discussion.
Yeah, I figured that would be a good way to do it. And my one goal is at least so that we can release some of them, so that once again, there's always been these weird things like, oh, people are shilling all this fun stuff. Mundane Matt wants to create a secret council, blah blah blah. I do want to at least release some of the talks like this out, just so that people can at least hear what we're talking about and don't feel crazy out of the loop, even though they are part of the group. That's all.
Yeah, and I kind of want to get a lot of the admins like Robert Stoll, John Yapel, and whatnot on board. I mean, they're like I want to have them have a lot of power in, well, not a lot of power, but a lot of like the same adminship they enjoyed in Ultras 1 and Ultras 2. And I want to get them on the same page with sort of like the contingent, like Cal and William and I, and like the contingent that are interested in building Ultras 2. I want to get them on board as well and kind of like have a more close dialogue with them, because I don't want it to be like all weird. But I mean, it's a new group.
Yeah.
I mean, it came up yesterday or so, 2 days ago. So I mean, like, we're still working things out. So within the week, we'll have a lot more of a good picture of where we're going with this group, I think.
I think so too. I did try to get Robert on it, like over this weekend when we tried to do the D&D stuff. He even still had, like, it's finals. He has a lot of papers to write. I imagine I'll try to get one going even by the end of this week, just so we can try to get John and Robert in. Is Lee also an admin in this group, or no?
Oh yeah, I made Darren an admin here. I think at this point, all the admins from Ultras, other than some guy I've never heard of before, and of course Ian, are admins now. So I mean, I have even the people I don't really know who were admins before as admins. So we have John, we have Darren, we have Robert, we have someone named Zoe. I don't know who the hell that is.
I added her as a friend so I can kind of monitor as well. So I think we're all kind of doing the watchdog thing as far as keeping quote-unquote normies or, just usurpers and griefers out of the group.
Yeah, and if I see one of the admins are having a problem, I mean, we can remove them. I mean, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
So, I think so far, as long as, admins don't go crazy making a bunch of other admins and it turns into a mess, I think so far the setup we have now is working out. So, we'll just see how things go, I think.
Good stuff.
Cool. Yeah, I agree with all of that. I'll try to get the second discussion on this week, just because I agree. I don't want to leave any of the admins out or make it as like this is the council of the plebs talking to the two plebs that actually have a voice or anything like that. I'd rather try to get as many people on that we can get talking.
Kind of swap as well. We should kind of swap like Rad and I out every so often.
That's what I was thinking. Getting a few different. Well, we'd probably have to get a couple of different streams going. I'll even keep like Robert open. Like Robert, I know has the Stoll review, but I'm sure he wouldn't mind at least setting up a secondary stream.
What I'll do is I mean, I've known you for some time, so well enough, I guess. But what I'll do is I'll make you admin for Ultras 2 and kind of let you monitor things as they go.
Okay. I was thinking of setting up a YouTube channel as well, a separate one from this, which is my personal account. If you want, we can run streams out of that as well.
That was one of my goals, at least to get it so that if things do pick up in this second group, or if these streams start to get watched more, or any of our channels, even Thasgar of Wushade channel or Cal and your channel gets big, I'd rather we did have these pseudonyms kind of around so that we don't have any issues, because it is a closed group, which does make it a little bit easier. But if we decide to have things broadcasted, that's kind of why I'm putting the Major League Gaming version of Rod Serling up, just because I'd rather have that than my actual identity out there. So, but in any case, definitely happy with all of those ideas. Kevin, just let me know when you ever, or when I am admin or whatever it happens to be, just so I can actually keep up on it.
You already are. I just made you in the other window, so Yeah, just keep an eye on things, and we'll see how it goes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll keep an eye out, and yeah, just of course let me know if you need anything from or at the group and you can't get there or anything like that. But in any case, once again, even once again, thanks again, guys, and hopefully we'll talk again soon and get this a little more ironed out.
Yep. Take care.
Yeah.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.